Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Dark Matters Network. Today we have an important transmission in a series of important transmissions. So, today I want to talk about the liability order. And what is liability? The ability to be lied to. This transmission comes to you from deep within the Dark Matters Network in conjunction with the Last Blue Boar of England. And this is a series of videos that we have been working on and will continue to work on so that we can alleviate the illusion of so-called government. So let's have a look at the liability order in relation to council tax. Now, I did a video on council tax a couple of months ago. If you haven't seen that, maybe pause this and go watch that, where it goes into the deception of council tax and the fraud of council tax upon the people in more detail. But as I say, specifically, we're going to have a look at the liability order. So what do we have now from these unelected private corporate entities? The United Kingdom Government Limited, masquerading currently as public servants. The set is up, the acts are in, yeah, and this shower of shite come along in fraud, theft, deception, and the serious crime of uttering, which is a common law crime of dishonesty, whereby a forged document is knowingly used with an intent to deceive. But we're going to do a later transmission on that in more detail. So let's have a look at this liability order. There has never once been a liability order granted by a magistrate's court on this land for the non-payment of council tax. Only the application was granted. A court order is something of material substance that must comply with the civil procedural rules. This must contain upon it a court seal and the name in clear text of the judge and or magistrate issuing it. No such document or record exists because that was not the service that was requested by the council. So if we have a look here now, let's have a look at a true court seal v. a fraudulent corporate obfuscating, mind-bending, fraudulent nonsense. So here we can clearly see the difference. And as the late, great Baron David Ward said to Mrs. S. Pye at Warrington Magistrates Court on the 17th day of July 2013, that no such order was granted and no such court order was requested by Warrington Borough Council by Mrs. S. Pye. And a copy of a liability order isn't a liability order, just as a rainbow isn't a pile of shit. And this is what we've got to really focus our attentions onto. We've got to simplify what is happening with this fraud, with this theft, with this deception of these corporate entities. So we don't have a true liability order, and we're going to deep dive a little bit more why. So a liability order has to come from a court, and these liability orders are not coming from courts. They are simply showing the instructions. So when these private enforcement officers masquerading as bailiffs, they might want to call themselves bailiffs, but they aren't true GB bailiffs. They are private enforcement officers that have been contracted by the council to enforce fake, fraudulent, so-called liability orders. The order is from the council and not from the court. These orders have never seen a courtroom. They haven't even sniffed one. No. The definitive court record is the copy of the court register, yeah? So if there's no memorandum of entry, then there has been no adjudication. These liability orders are not being produced and or sent from a court. I repeat, these liability orders are not being produced or sent from a court. So what is it exactly that the councils and these private debt enforcement agents are enforcing? Hotter, fresher, fraud, theft, the crime of uttering. So what we can do is we can send and utilize data subject access requests, our DSARs. We can send them to the court, we can send them to the council, because if there is no case number, there is no case. Let's just let that sink in for a minute. So if there is no case number, there is no case to answer. The definitive court record is a copy of the court register. As we've said, no memorandum of entry, therefore no adjudication. So liability orders are a lie. So, contrary to popular belief, these orders are not produced or dispatched from a court, which basically means without this, with the absence of the memorandum of entry into the court record, yeah, the legitimacy of this adjudication process is null and void. Without a case number, I repeat, there is no case. So it is imperative for us to challenge the authenticity of these so-called liability orders, emphasising that no actual court, as per the civil procedural rules, remember this is the civil Bible, has been granted for non-payment of council tax. So this highlights the lack of material substance, the absence of the court seal, and the clear, I repeat, the clear identification of the judge or magistrate issuing it. They don't have any of this. This is the legal landscape. This is the legal obfuscation that we are labouring under. This is the pseudo administrative nature of these orders. The councils are just in league with the clerk of the court. They hire a private room for the day and they rubber stamp, etc., and so on. But again, go watch my previous video about that. It's called Council Tax, the Scam. These admin courts, as we know, are operating under admiralty jurisdiction, viewing us as legal fictions, corporations lost at sea. As the great Baron said, nothing's ever signed. Why? Because they don't want to take that liability. They don't want to put their name and signature onto any of these fraudulent documents. So what this also means for people who have perhaps got attachments of earnings orders, money that's being attached to your benefits, and obviously you are the beneficiary. Benefits clues in a title, which is why they used to get you to sign on, because it is the signature that they want, etc. But that's a different video. No money can be taken from benefits. Social Security Administration Act 1992, no money can be taken from benefits. So again, this is the fraud that we're labouring under, and I will put these documents up so that people can have them if you want a copy of them. So if we have a quick look also, let's look at the council tax handbook. The council tax handbook. Now this is in their own literature. Chapter 10, enforcement. This is the 13th edition of, I repeat, the council tax handbook. So it clearly states that the form, which used to be called Form A, originally provided to draw up said liability orders, was removed from law on the 10th of July 2003 in Wales and the 1st of October 2003 in England, and no form has replaced it. So if we have a look at this is the council tax handbook. I'll put these up now. And basically it's saying that the form was removed and it's in their own literature. As we look further down here as well, the lack of an adequate and independent record may be a breach of human rights under Article 6 as well. And we'll deep dive what that means. So not only are they operating in fraud and theft, they are violating our human rights. I mean, nobody can confer a right on another, but again, that's another video. And all are equal under the law. So how the feck, let's just summarise. How the feck does the council have the authority to A, instruct the enforcement of the debt in the first place, and B, to contract these goons, these private debt enforcement agents that aren't true GB bailiffs? What source of authority are they coming from here? As we said in Halsbury's laws, nothing can be passed to legitimise these pseudo-administrative courts. And the thing is, it ain't even seen one of these courts. And as we know, the judges aren't on their oaths and their bonds. They're just stating corporate affirmations. It's all a fraud. It's connivance of the court, etc. and so on. So many of you will have seen the landmark case of Leighton v. Bristow and Souter. Again, I deep dived this in the previous video on council tax. So this affects all these agents that are coming up, these private debt agents, yeah? This case has never seen a courtroom, I repeat. And the conduct of these enforcement officers is strictly controlled under the Tribunals, Courts and Enforcement Act 2007, yeah? So they must show their identity, these enforcement officers. They must show their authority from the court. I repeat, from the court, not just a piece of paper from the council saying that it's a liability order. A notice of a liability order isn't a liability order. It's an obfuscation of the mind. So what are they showing you when they're coming to collect on this alleged debt? Yeah, is this not the epitome of profiteering by deception? And as previously stated, this is also a breach of the Human Rights Act, Article 6, which covers the determining of the civil rights and obligations of a citizen. Yeah. So this is where we can start to get these liability orders set aside. Or, as we previously stated, send the liability back to the Section 151 officer under the Local Government Act 1888, Section 79, that after incorporation, and remember, all these councils have incorporated now. I mean, a lot of them are bankrupt. That's another video. After incorporation, all duties and liabilities of the inhabitants, and we are the inhabitants, we aren't state citizens, we are inhabitants of the land, shall become the duties and liabilities of the council. Now, what this means is all your public liabilities, be that your council tax, your water, your gas, your electric, all of your public liabilities can be sent back to these councils. It's the Section 151 officer who has the fiduciary duty to settle these accounts on your behalf as an inhabitant of the land. And this is what we've got to get back to. We aren't state citizens. We're not in their jurisdiction. The rules are for them, not for us. We stand under law. I mean, there's only 12 presumptions of law, but again, that's another video. So let's have just a quick look before we round up at the Freedom of Information Act that appeared on Vobes' show, Richard Vobes, and a big shout out to Richard for all the amazing work that Richard does on his channel. He's got a strike at the moment, so we can but all come together and club together. And this Freedom of Information Act was actually signed off by somebody called Sean E. Jones, LLB, the head of legal. And I actually went to university with a Sean Jones, LLB. I wonder if it's the same one. Who knows? And under this Freedom of Information Act, and the request number is 240104080, and I'll put this up here. The de-prescription of liability orders took place in 2003. Since that time, HMCTS and its precursor organisations have employed thousands of legal advisors, and we have no record of the date when each one became aware of the change. They were removed. They were removed. They were de-prescribed. So what is it that they're actually relying on to enforce these fake orders when it's even in their own literature and right there under the Freedom of Information Act where it clearly states they were removed in 2003? What is it that we are doing? When will this unlawful madness stop, and when will we stop it? It is up to us to stop it. But hopefully we can show you how to stop it with our help. You know, we are the people with the power of the people, reserved by the people. And we will be doing workshops on void orders to show people in real time. And then that's any order that you've had from these parasites, yeah, and the pseudo courts and the fake jurisdiction. And we will show you how to void these unlawful orders, how to fill in the document, how to send the document, to fully action it in real time. We're saying the workshop will probably take around 4 hours approximately, and we'll be doing these, you know, in real time with you guys as living men and women. Get a group together, get your community group together, get your freedom hub together, and we'll show you how to do this. How to challenge the council tax. Well, what we've got to start doing is holding them to account for this malfeasance, misfeasance, non-feasance, etc., and sue these private enforcement officers en masse. Yeah. Judge Manning in the Royal Court of Justice in 2022, and I quote, "All unsigned warrants are illegal." And again, it's like what I've said. All of this is twickery. It's an illusion in the minds of men and women that they have this authority. They only have the authority that we give them, that we delegated our power to them to conduct affairs and business of state, not for them to then lower our status to persons and to use those rules to then tell us what to do. When is this madness going to stop? They've told us that we won't even be able to make our own fires by 2030, that they're coming to destroy our farmers, our food production. They're telling us this is going to happen. He who creates owns. It doesn't work like that. We tell them what to do, not the other way around. And this is what's got to come back. And this is what we've got to get out there. We've got to do this en masse. 26th of the 12th, 2024, corporate liability law changed. So as a warning, we can sue any person within the corporation. That means the council, the police, the courts. They are aiding and abetting or committing these financial crimes against us. Is it not just the very definition of profiteering by deception? They are now fully liable in their private and public capacity, and the CEO or the chief executive is also liable. Therefore, every person is now liable for their corporate actions in the act of committing any financial crime, etc., and so on. The cloak of authority is off, people. See Clearfield Doctrine from our previous video. And I'd just like to end, if I can, on a quote by William Keats, and this comes from the chapter on constitutional limitations on government, the occulted powers of the British Constitution. It stands to reason that unless the people of the country have powers over their own government, the people will eventually find themselves in a place of tyranny. Unless limitations are placed upon the government, and more specifically how it creates legislation, that government will eventually write itself into a position of absolute power. Because power ultimately lies with those that can deliver punishment. For true equity to exist, the people must have that authority over their own governing administration, meaning that, in fact, the people govern themselves. The people must not see their government as authority. If government retains the ultimate power to punish without the authority of the people, then the people will ultimately be in fear of their government. It's time to remember who we are. End transmission.